so don't stop.
Hello, APUSH people. This is Mr. Lawback. Thank you for joining me. In this video, we are going to go over the causes of the Civil War. The Civil War erupted from a variety of longstanding tensions and disagreements about American life and politics. The people and politicians of the northern and southern states had been clashing over these issues that finally led to war. The economic interest, cultural values, and the power and scope of the federal government to control the states. The most important issue, however, was slavery. The Civil War ran from 1861 to 1865 and killed approximately 800,000 Americans. This is more Americans killed than every other war combined. First, the two ultimate causes of the Civil War. The North and the South had created two drastically different economies. The North was focused on manufacturing and the South was an agrarian society, and the two favored differing governmental policies. The cornerstone of the South society and economy was slavery. The South was against tariffs because they bought many of their goods from foreign countries. The North favored tariffs because it protected their industry. The other ultimate cause was the development of the abolition movement in the North. Abolitionists were dedicated to the immediate ending of slavery in the United States, no matter what the effect on the Southern economy. Many Southerners saw the abolition movement as a conspiracy and a threat to their way of life, not just to slavery. Now for the immediate causes of the Civil War, or the more specific events that actually led to the war. So a big question, should the Western expansion territories and states be open to slavery? The South thought it should be, and the North thought it should not be. The Compromise of 1850 did preserve the balance of power in Congress between slave states and free states, but created a further divide between the North and the South on the issue of slavery. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. This act basically outlawed the Missouri Compromise and allowed slavery above the 3630 line. Many Northerners thought the 3630 line regarding slavery would be observed forever. This act eventually led to the outbreak of what became known as Bleeding Kansas, which was basically seen as a mini Civil War. The formation of the Republican Party in 1854, which was dedicated to preventing the expansion of slavery, but not to the complete abolition of slavery. The South wanted to expand their agrarian society westward, and they viewed the abolition of slavery in those territories as a first step to abolishing slavery altogether. The Dred Scott Supreme Court ruling of 1857 under Chief Justice Taney. The Supreme Court ruled that black people, whether slave or not slave, are not American citizens, and Congress has no right to restrict slavery in any of the territories, and that slavery could exist in any of the new territories as well. Much like the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850, the Supreme Court ruling in Dred Scott infuriated the North, and many consider the Dred Scott decision to be the worst Supreme Court decision in the history of the Supreme Court. John Brown was a radical abolitionist. Him and his supporters, including his sons, raided the armory at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, which is now in West Virginia, and wanted to arm the slaves for an uprising. Brown was ultimately captured, tried, convicted, and executed for his crimes, ironically by Robert E. Lee, who was a general in the Virginia militia. John Brown was financed by abolitionists, and many in the North considered him to be a hero and a martyr upon his execution. Conversely, many in the South considered him to be a terrorist. The election of 1860 was a victory for Republican candidate Abraham Lincoln for the President of the United States. Even though Lincoln said he would not intervene in slavery where it already existed, he only wanted to prevent it from spreading to new territories. His election greatly angered the South. In December of 1860, starting with South Carolina, the South began to secede from the Union, followed by Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. South Carolina's attack on Fort Sumter and Charleston Harbor in April of 1861. Fort Sumter was being occupied by Union troops, and the South wanted them gone. They attacked. This was definitely not one of the most deadly and damaging battles of the war, but it was so significant because it was the actual beginning of fighting between the North and the South. Responding to the attack, Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteer soldiers. Enthusiasm for the war increased in the North. In turn, this prompted states in the Upper South, like Virginia, to secede and join the other Southern states. At this point, war was inevitable, and 3 months later, the Union and Confederate militaries battled at the First Manassas, also known as the First Battle of Bull Run. The battling in the Civil War had begun and would continue for 4 long years. Now for some big takeaways from the causes of the Civil War. So while there were many causes and a bunch of events that would eventually lead to the Civil War, the number one cause, and it all went back to the issue of slavery. The election of 1860 was the catalyst that actually began secession. The election of President Lincoln really upset many in the South, and they felt they needed to break free from the Union and start the Confederate States of America. A final takeaway: the American Civil War was the deadliest and most destructive war in American history by far. So I hope this video helps you better understand the causes of the American Civil War. Can see but you when you